Hey there. I have been asked more than one time by my clients and by the people that I'm talking to constantly on the social media and I'm interacting with to talk about my story, or they wanted to know more about my story. So I thought I will record this video to share my story with you. You may be wondering what qualifies me to talk about taking risks in life, what qualifies me to talk about fear, what qualifies me to talk about career transition. So I was born in a war-ridden country where I had fear running through my vein at the age of 13 years old. I remember crossing the city that I was living in from one side to another side. I had to walk through landmines, and if I drop whatever I'm carrying in my hand at that time, I might be triggering the landmine and me and my whole family would be wiped out. So that was the childhood that I was brought up in, and grew up in that country. Was passionate about becoming a international person. So I had to get resourceful, get out of my comfort zone, because I was living with my family the whole time. So I had to get resourceful, get out of my comfort zone for me to step out of my home country. And this is when I moved to Australia. So I moved to Australia and I fell in love with the country, and I wanted to stay here. I wanted to remain in the country and make this my new home and seek better opportunities in life, basically. So what ended up happening that I could not be able to stay in the country because whatever I was studying at that time was not in demand by the immigration authority. So I had to get resourceful and again, get out of my comfort zone and take a risk for me to study something that was completely not in line with what I was planning to do for my career. So what I was planning to do for my career was to go down the path of corporate and become a businessman, basically. So what I ended up doing, I ended up studying to become a cook, which was in demand by the migration authorities, but at the same time, it was not in line with what I wanted to do with my career. So I ended up spending a year and a half not knowing if I was going to qualify for me to apply and get a permanent residency for me to stay in Australia and make this my new home. So for that year and a half, you can imagine, you can read between the lines what was going in my head and the level of fear and anxiety that I was going through for me to be able to finally realize that I was able to make it, and this is when I end up staying in the country. So fast forward a few years, I started my career and I climbed the career ladder until I got to a very secured position working for Toyota here in Sydney, Australia, back in 2000 and I'm gonna say 7 or thereabout, which is about right. And it was a very secure job. There's a lot of perks, and I was, very comfortable. But the bug of becoming an international person bit me, and that was. I've had it since a long time, but that I kept on revisiting that, and I wanted to continue my journey to become a global person. But that wasn't possible because the company was not willing to sponsor me and transfer me to another country. So I had to take a risk and step out of my comfort zone to get myself another job overseas on my own. But that didn't happen. So I ended up subsiding to my fear, staying where I am, and I end up actually staying in the company for about 3 to 4 years or thereabout, until the pain of remaining in that same place kept on climbing and growing and kept on hurting me, so to speak, that internal conflict. And do you relate to that, where you are in a position or in a career where you feel a lot of internal conflict within you, that you just want to step out of where you are, but you can't seem to be able to do that because the stakes are quite high. There's a lot of risk to be taken, and you don't want to take that risk, until the pain of staying where I am became so much so that I could not tolerate it. This is when I decided to take a leap of faith, basically, and step out of my comfort zone. I've taken 12 weeks, not 12 weeks, about 6 weeks off. Most of them were unpaid, and I ended up going to Dubai and started applying left, right, and center. This is when I got my role working for Louis Vuitton. I started with them in Dubai, And at that time, my wish was to become a global person. And they say, be careful what you wish for. So boy, that I became a global person. So working with them was an amazing journey. I did that for 10 years in 3 countries. So eventually I ended up living in 5 countries in my life, 3 with Louis Vuitton and 2 on my own between my home country and Australia. So then, my value changed in life. So I got to a stage where I no longer want to do the corporate world or work in the corporate world. I wanted to transition, and I wanted to transition to something that would help me to influence people beyond my team, beyond my immediate circle. So I kept on, ruminating on that, and I kept on avoiding it, because the further you climb up the corporate ladder, the more you will be obviously, it's going to be harder for you to step out of your comfort zone. So the higher you climb the corporate ladder, the harder for you it's going to be to jump off that ladder into something else, basically, because you may land on your feet or you may land on your face, right? So it took me some time, and it took a few years actually. But the pain, again, I got revisited by that conflict and the pain for me to step out of corporate, for me to go into entrepreneurial and influential industry, so to speak, which is what I'm doing right now. And eventually, I took that leap of faith, but again, you can read a lot between the lines, and that's how I end up doing what I'm doing right now. And that's my story in short. But in between the line, once more, I've taken a lot of risk, I've dealt with a lot of fear, but most importantly, I've dealt with a lot of pain that got me to change from where I am right now to where I wanted to go. And my message to you, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't have to wait for that pain. You don't have to wait for that pain to visit you, for you to realize that this is not where you want to be, this is not where you belong, and you want to go into something else beyond your current career, beyond your current job, basically. So don't wait for that pain. Get resourceful, seek help, see what you are able to do in your life for you to step out of your comfort zone gradually, 2 millimeters at a time, but consistently. I heard this saying recently. It goes like this, it's okay to be mediocre as long as you are being mediocre every day. So consistency is key here, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I would like to thank you for listening to my story.